Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi landed in the United States a little over 2 hours ago at the joint base Andrews in Washington, D.C. The Prime Minister is accompanied by a high-level delegation including National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and Foreign Secretary Harsh Shringla. The Prime Minister is all set to meet CEOs of top US-based businesses today. He's also set to meet Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison today itself. So we are picking up details of what's lined up for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's going to be busy 3 days for Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the United States. First up in Washington, D.C., where he already has reached. Then he will be headed to New York for the UNGA, where he's all set to make some very important points that will directly impact the global powers. Prime Minister Narendra Modi there, you can see a little over 2 hours ago, reached the joint base Andrews in Washington, D.C. and the kind of welcome he received. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 7th visit to the United States of America during his tenure, both the first tenure and the second tenure, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the joint base on Andrews in Washington, D.C. being welcomed by the foreign delegation there. We'll also take you through visuals of how the Indian community welcomed the Prime Minister. All smiles and waving Indian flags. Those visuals also we'll be putting out very, very shortly. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi's United States visit is something that is being spoken of across the world because he is in Washington, D.C., a 3-day visit. He will be attending the first in-person Quad Leaders Summit, will hold several bilateral meetings and also address the United Nations General Assembly. He arrived at the joint base Andrews in Washington, D.C., met his supporters before going to attend the UN session as well. A huge crowd of people could be seen holding the Indian national flag. They were seen clicking photographs as they met the Indian Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister there, as you can see, those visuals of a little over 2 hours ago, how he's waving at people and very excited people there of the Indian community welcoming Prime Minister Narendra Modi to their country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as he stepped out of his car to meet people who were waiting to welcome him at the joint base Andrews in Washington, D.C. What we'll also do is we'll go across to our senior executive editor, Abhishek Kapoor, in just a bit because he's reporting live from Washington, D.C. Very excited people welcoming Prime Minister Narendra Modi as he begins his 3-day visit. Abhishek has been filing several ground reports from Washington, D.C. Take a look.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's carcade finally arriving from Joint Base Andrews to his hotel in Washington, D.C., the Hotel Willard, next to this Hotel Washington, where the Indian contingent is staying. Prime Minister leading a delegation which includes External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Prime Minister's advance party coming in. It's a huge cavalcade that's coming in. Prime Minister Narendra Modi coming to United States for his 7th visit, first only after the COVID pandemic took the world in its ugly grip outside of his neighborhood. He is going to have intense round of diplomacy over the next couple of days. He's going to have bilaterals beginning with President Biden and then Prime Minister Suga of Japan, then Prime Minister Scott Morrison of Australia. That's the Indian flag with the United States flag in a Dodge or Suburban. Possibly that was the Prime Minister's car.
All right, so we cut across to more visuals we are picking up and of Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaching the joint base Andrews in Washington, D.C. We'll keep up with those visuals for a while because this happened a little over 2 hours ago. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi, remember, is in Washington, D.C. now. A lot of important meetings that are lined up for him. It's already 8:30 in the evening there. And he will be meeting several CEOs. He will be talking to and interacting with the Indian diaspora there. Following which we're also being told that he will be meeting Scott Morrison today itself. So an action-packed 3-day indeed lined up for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And parallelly, we're picking up a lot of information as far as the G4 meeting of the foreign ministers is concerned. We'll also be getting you developments on that. They have also issued a joint statement following the meeting, which reaffirmed that it is indispensable to reform the Security Council through an expansion of both categories, permanent and non-permanent seats. So we'll get you that breaking update. But keeping up with these visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaching Washington, D.C., you can see him getting off the plane. Shortly, we'll play out those visuals of him interacting with the Indian diaspora. He got off his car. People were waving at him. They were waving the Indian national flag at Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And those visuals on your television screens. And that's the kind of welcome Prime Minister has essentially received every time he has been in any foreign soil. The kind of welcome he's received from the